Good morning, good afternoon, and good night. This is Mark Fikes Jr. This has become the podcast. How do you become anything? You dream, you declare, you commit, and success is your next breath. We are listening to the sounds of one of my favorite MCs, Most Def. He's actually changed his name to Yasin Bey. Yasin Bey. I think I'm saying the first name incorrectly, but it definitely starts with a Y. It's got an S in it. I feel bad that I got my favorite MC's new name wrong, but I think he still goes by the name of Most Def, but he has another name I think that has a little bit more meaning attached to it. But I thought Most Def being an intellectual MC, a conscious MC, not even conscious, just more so awake, and willing to talk about controversial topics. And I think he's a thinking man's MC. And you can tell by his music, you can tell by his content, you can tell by his political stances, you can tell by what he does on the stage and off the stage. He's a thinker, and so I thought he would be a good background to today's theme, which is 2%. So a lot of people ask me what the 2% means, and if you look at all of my social media, whether you look at my Facebook page, my Instagram page, or my Twitter page, if you look at anything that I do, there's always this 2% there. And so one of my basketball players, Robbie and Sheila, he wanted to know what the 2% was, and then I had another guy by the name of Kyle Gupton. He wanted to know what the 2% was, and so I explained it to him, but I thought I'd dedicate this podcast to helping them and anybody else who's interested in understanding what the 2% means. So I give you this line that I was given, and actually this line was given to me by Cam Houston. Cam Houston was a student at Concordia University I used to rock with. Since then he's moved back to I think Texas, but he gave me this line, and I've been using it ever since then because I think it's a dope line. But the line is this: 2% of people are thinking, 3% of people think they are thinking, and 95% of people would die if they had to think. Say it again: 2% of people are thinking, 3% of people think they are thinking, and 95% of people would die if they had to think. I love using those three numbers because, number one, for whatever reason, people remember things in threes, right? So even my own stuff, dream, declare, commit, and then success is your next breath. But dream, declare, commit, there is stop, drop, and roll. There's beginning, middle, and end. There is 911. There's the Three Little Pigs. For whatever reason, our brain is able to remember information in bunches of threes, right? So aside from what the 2%, the 3%, and 95% represent, that bundle of three just makes a lot of sense in people's heads, right? If I say it once, or if I say it a couple times during a presentation, 9 times out of 10 people, they remember it. And if they don't remember what the 2%, the 3%, and the 95% remember what they mean, they'll still have numbers locked in their head, right? So that's one reason why I use it. But another reason why I use it is because those numbers, these are not numbers that have been researched and they won't change over the course of time or anything like that. But they just are numbers that just create they create some thought, that create a conversation. They help to illustrate this idea that there's a small portion of people that are thinking out there that are working hard to use their mind to think through problems and situations and whatnot. There's another portion of people who think they're thinking, and there's another portion of people who aren't thinking at all, right? And so we'll start with the 95%. The 95% of people refuse to think. 95% of people refuse to think. And I understand that some thinking is complicated, right? But day-to-day thinking is very, very easy. Day-to-day thinking is very, very easy. But there are some people who are forced with unfortunate circumstances that make day-to-day thinking incredibly difficult. And because it's so difficult, it's so overwhelming that they refuse to think, and they turn to different substances, or they indulge in substance abuse to kind of escape their reality, right? So I understand that based on your social economic status, your quality of resources, your family infrastructure, and other factors, I know that it is really, really tough for some people to think through what's in front of them in order to make a decision. So I want to put that caveat out there that I know that it's tough for some people. This is me being empathetic and making sure that we recognize that it's tough for some people, right? And that's what causes drinking, abuse, substance abuse, so on and so forth. But there are a lot of people who have not a perfect situation, but they have a solid situation. And all it takes is for them to think things through, and they can turn their disadvantage into an advantage, but they refuse to do so. And a lot of people refuse to not only think, but they refuse to make decisions. And here's the thing. The people who get what they want out of life never waste an opportunity to make a decision, no matter if it's a 1-cent decision or if it's a multi-million-dollar decision. The people who get what they want out of life never waste an opportunity to make a decision, whether it's a 1-cent decision or a multi-million-dollar decision. But the 95% of people, they refuse to make a decision. They rather the universe make decisions for them. And what happens is, when you allow the universe to make decisions for you, when you allow the people around you to make decisions for you, when you have opportunities to vote, when you have opportunities to stand up, when you have opportunities to object, when you have opportunities to make a decision, we have opportunities to be a part of the decision-making process, and you refuse to engage. You refuse to think about what your opinion is. You refuse to think about what it is you want. You refuse to think about what will make you happy, what will be good for the collective, what will be good for the people that you are associated with. When you refuse to think and be a part of the collective decision-making process, you are allowing everybody else around you to make decisions for you. And what 95% of people do, as soon as they get that decision, they get upset, they're disgruntled, they get mad at the outcome. And then they sit there and they get pissed off because they don't like what has been chosen for them, ignoring the fact that they had an opportunity to make a decision. You had an opportunity to think about what it is you wanted. I just heard Hill Harper. He spoke at the U of M Martin Luther King symposium, and he was saying that we get so caught up in the primary elections that we ignore. I think I'm gonna get the wording wrong. Well, we ignore the preliminary elections. So not the election for the president, but these other elections for your city council, your state representatives. It's another election in the middle of the big elections that impact your community, that impact the people that are probably the closest to you in terms of working in politics and working in government or local government. And people are getting upset about their circumstances, but when they get when you're given an opportunity to vote, they don't show up. You know what I'm saying? And that's just one situation, but there are many situations in life where, listen, man, here's your opportunity to get involved. And they don't. So 95% of people don't think. They refuse to think. They rather let everybody make a decision for them, and then they find it more easy they're more comfortable getting upset at the outcome versus being a part of the outcome. So that's 95%. 3% of people think they're thinking, right? They confuse critical thinking, or they confuse lazy thinking with critical thinking. And what they do is 3% of people, all they do is shoot stuff down. So you're in a business meeting, or you're in a room, right? And someone says, this is our problem. And so one person says, well, how about we attack the problem from underneath? I think we can solve this problem if we come from underneath. And the 3% will say that'll never work. So someone says, okay, how about we attack the problem from above? I think that's a great way that we can attack this problem. The 3% will say that's a dumb idea. And someone else will say, okay, well, what if we attack the problem from the left and the right? We can attack it from both ways, and in that way we can kind of kill two birds with one stone, or we can kill one bird with two stones. And the 3% would say that's the dumbest idea I've ever heard in my life. That will never work. And so then you'll say, well, what ideas do you have? And the 3% will say nothing. And they think they're being they think they're using critical thinking skills, because sometimes people think critical thinking skills is all about finding flaw in things, right? But true critical thinking skills, what you're doing is you're finding a way to make the situation better. You may not get all the way to 100, but you're finding a way to make it better, which we'll get into a little bit later. But 3% of people think they are thinking, and they convince themselves that I'm involved, I'm engaged, I'm working really hard. You know what I'm saying? Well, actually, it's lazy thinking. Yeah, you're thinking, but you're not thinking as hard as you could to come up with a solution. You know what I'm saying? You're as much of a problem as the person who doesn't think at all. You know, this person doesn't think, but then this person, they think they're thinking, but all they do is shoot things down. So that 98% of people, you don't want to be around them at all. All right? Because they're probably even more frustrating. At least this person doesn't think at all. Great. Don't think at all. But the other person, they're part of the process. They're engaged, but all they want to do is be negative. So you got to pick your poison. So then the 2% of people, they are committed to getting to 100%. And this is what I mean. If we have a problem, and at our current state, we're at 50%, and if we can only get to 60% or 70%, that's better than being at 50. So the 2% wake up every day committed to getting to 100%, right? 100% is the problem being solved. 100% is the day being made perfect and good for everyone, right? And so every day they're working to get to 100%. Every day it's a grind. Some days you're going to start at 50%, some days you're going to start at 70%, some days you're going to start at 95%, some days you're going to start at 0. But every day you're working to get yourself close to 100. Because this is the thing. At the 2%, you may not get to 100, but if I can get us close, that's something to be appreciative of. That's something to applaud and be grateful for. 2% of people work to always think, meaning they know there's a solution, there's a better answer, there's a better way. We gotta push the thing forward. Just because we did halfway decent and we got up to 95% today doesn't mean that we can't get to 100. Doesn't mean that we can't push the envelope on our collective intelligence, on our effort, and maybe we can stretch ourselves a little bit more and get closer to what we want. So they're always willing to think, and they're always willing to make a decision. They're always willing to make a decision, whether it's a one-cent decision or a multi-million-dollar decision. And they're not going to let somebody else dictate their happiness. When I was in class, in my master's class, I'm almost done. I got 1 more minute left. When I was in my master's class, the professor would ask us, how long do you want to take a break? We'd be in class for like 3 hours and some change, right? And the professor would say, well, do you want to take a break? And I would look around waiting for someone to make a decision. And they were all no one wanted to make a decision for the collective, because no one wanted to be responsible for saying, I want to take a break when everybody else doesn't. So I got frustrated and I started making decisions for the class, because I'm like, listen, I'm not going to allow you guys to make a decision for me. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to put my bid in. If I make you upset, hey, we just gotta, it is what it is. But we all had the opportunity to make a decision. And so we can negotiate, we can talk about it, but I'm not going to let somebody else make a decision for me. I'm going to always think about what it is I want, think about what's best for the collective, and then I'm going to put my bid in and go from there. So I hope that makes sense, man. 2% of people are thinking, 3% of people think they're thinking, and 95% of people would die if you had to think. Today, be the 2%. Done.